Learn the latest news surrounding President Kimpembe, as we are making serious efforts now to make him one of our new additions this window. We have updates on the future of Armando Broja, as well as resurfacing our interest again to sign Kounde. So many things to break down and discuss. I'm going to get the plugs out the way very quickly. Number one, please let's get 3k likes. And for the second one, you guys, I want to say a big shout and thank you to everyone for the very kind and supportive messages recently, especially my match review I posted in the early hours of the morning. It was nice. I got to experience something that a lot of you guys experience yourselves, especially international fans, where you're waking up during crazy hours of the morning to watch our club. You know your support for our club is undeniable. You don't have to hear that from me. I don't have to give you guys any cosigns at all. And before I get into things, I want to get the final plug out of the way first. Today's video is brought to you by friends of the channel and OneFootball. Now, I feel like I say this all the time, but I really say this for a reason, because for me, when I use OneFootball, especially during times like this, during the summer, it makes my job even easier, and it gives me access to the things I want to see as quickly as possible. For example, if I want to get an understanding of pre-season games being played, I click on the tab here, and I see access to everything. For example, our next game, of course, being against Charlotte FC, coming very soon in the next few days. You can get some information here. Now, if I want to get serious insight behind the stories that have dropped today, I go to my profile page, I click on my favorite team, of course, Chelsea, and there I get access to all the latest information that comes out by the minute through the app. Honestly, there'll be so many stories that you're not even put onto that you'll find using the OneFootball app. So for me, this feature alone is worth its weight in gold. But help yourselves, help support the channel, download OneFootball. You'll find a link below in the description. And let's discuss the future surrounding Armando Broja. Now, an article was released by the Daily Mail, and in the article it does state that West Ham are more than happy now to try and sign Broja on loan until the end of the season. Now, originally, we know they produced an initial opening bid of 25 million plus 5 million in add-ons, which was rejected by the club. You'd imagine the club don't want to lose a talent like Broja. It makes more sense to keep him on the books and at least let him go out on loan to continue his development. I think for West Ham, it makes even more sense for them to sign him on loan. It becomes very risk-free for them in the sense that they can test out how Broja does for a season for a very relatively affordable fee. And if it works out, they have a whole season to entice and sell West Ham to the player to get him to sign on a permanent. So it's a win-win for them. But we do know that Broja and Tuchel held discussions earlier this week, and from what I'm hearing, it does seem like Broja has asked Tuchel that he wants to leave during this window. Now, one thing I can't tell you confirm at this point in time is whether that's going to be on a permanent or on loan. But still, there are going to be articles and reports coming out very, very soon around this story. We'll get even more context and insight once that comes. It's a bit of a shame, I guess. On one hand, was Broja not maybe given the assurances that he could get fair minutes to compete? Or does Broja feel like maybe it's too much competition for him at this point in time? I mean, now that we use a back three setup, it means that we always lose out on one attacking player. There's so much pressure on the forwards and attacking players already with the limited amount of quality chances they get. Would this be the ideal environment for Broja to be able to grow and improve? Because the guy still has to tweak parts of his game. For example, during the second half of last season, you know, his form kind of dips off, and in game, it feels like once he gets to the 70th minute, like he's empty, there's nothing left in the tank. They're just small examples of other parts of his game that could definitely be fine-tuned. And my thing is, if you go to a club like West Ham, where you can afford to not have to be at your 8 out of 10 bare minimum best, that is a better environment for you to be able to still make mistakes, but grow from every single one you make. That's one perspective in which I see things, but maybe on the other hand, there could be positive solutions from both Broja and Tuchel. Conor Gallagher last season could have stayed with the club, and if he did stay, you'd imagine that he would have got minutes from last season. But him and Tuchel decided it was best for him to get another loan spell, and Conor used that loan spell as an opportunity to put himself in such an amazing situation that he was fully confident and ready to challenge the first team ins. Broja could definitely get a lot of confidence from Conor Gallagher in that sense, and use a loan spell, of course, to continue to fine-tune his game. Still though, so many clubs have shown interest in trying to sign him. I know two massive clubs are currently Newcastle, who've had long-term interest to try and sign him, as well as AC Milan as well too. You know, I've always seen Broja as a young Diego Costa type of player, and my thing is, if we had Costa at this club when he was 20 and 21 years old, I don't think the fan base would have had any time for him, and most definitely wouldn't have liked him. But by having the opportunity of go out and develop and fine-tune his game. He came back to Atletico Madrid fully ready to take control and make things happen, and I feel like Broja could have that similar transformation if he spends more time on development. You guys, you know I'm very much about youth development, but there's levels to this stuff. Just because I like a youth player doesn't mean they all fall down to that same type of development. I think certain guys need more loan spells compared to others, for example, and I do hope that when he does leave in this window, it's not going to be on a permanent and hopefully on loan. So we now move on to the next story, and it's time to discuss the latest news surrounding Presnel Kimpembe. Now, so many reports are coming out from France currently. There's a reason why I had to just spend a bit more time before releasing this video to make these stories as up to date as humanly possible. But regardless, right now we've been holding extensive talks with Paris Saint-Germain sporting director Luis Campos over the availability of Kimpembe. Now, as reported by Romano, Paris Saint-Germain only want to sell him between 60 to 65 million euros. And it's just I swear every player we're trying to sign in this window is going for that same similar amount of money. And we've still shown that they're not willing to pay up to the tune of those demands. So let's see what happens. Ideally, we prefer to spend around 45 to 50 mil euros to try and sign Kimpembe. He's held talks with Thomas Tuchel already. Ideally, he would stay at Paris Saint-Germain, but the contract presented wasn't too good, and he's also interested in testing himself elsewhere and playing in the Premier League. So, working under Tuchel in a system that got the best out of his game, which is one of the most important things, that could be beneficial for all parties. But of course, continue on though, there's some more context and news around the story that could, make things even more interesting. The new Paris Saint-Germain manager has hinted at the fact that Kimpembe, of course, could be leaving, even though ideally he prefer for him not to. And I think that's the current situation that Paris Saint-Germain are currently in. Reports are saying that Gauthier, the new manager, will be the final man who has the final say on whether the player leaves or goes. Paris Saint-Germain don't want to waste time looking for other targets, even though they are currently doing that at this point in time. It's been a report that's been out for the past 2-3 days, and it involves Sporting Lisbon's Gonçalo Ignacio. Campos, of course, has the entire Portuguese market absolutely patterned, and they see Ignacio as a great replacement for Kimpembe if the player decided to leave. Now, reports that they've offered around 30 million euros to Lisbon, but the player has a release clause set at 45 million euros. So the money they receive from Kimpembe could easily go into signing Ignacio instead, and things work out for all parties. Now, I'll give some thoughts and opinions on Kimpembe. On one hand, the guy is really elite when it comes to certain things like his passing. I've always felt like he's a very special player on the ball when it comes to playing out from the back and progressive passes. Some of the stats from last season didn't necessarily reflect the true capabilities of Kimpembe, because the demands set by Pochettino and then by Didier Deschamps for the national team required his centre-backs to be a lot more positionally sensitive, to be, not as proactive, to not leave their defensive line. And it kind of forced the player to play a lot of sideways passes. There was no real proper structure in the build-up with both managers. So when things like this happen, you don't see the player at his full ultimate best. So in that sense, as I said, Kimpembe was the original Antonio Rudiger. It was Thomas Tuchel that really put Kimpembe on the map and gave him opportunities. And if I was to be cynical and real for a moment, my thing is, if you can give Kimpembe that game time and opportunities when you were the manager there, why can't you do the same thing with Levi Kounde? It just feels like we're wasting a lot of money, in my opinion, for a player that ultimately isn't absolute levels above what we already have. And for me, that is the reality, yeah? Now, there has been a ton of fake news surrounding Levi Kounde, but one thing I can tell you all is that the player is ready to stay and fight for his spot in the team, irrespective of whether new signings come in. And this doesn't mean that all the interested parties after the player are getting rebuffed and turned down. In this game, anything can happen. If an unreal offer comes in and maybe you realize that, okay, you might not get as many minutes as you think, then you have to restructure, replan, and decide what to do next. But at this point in time, the player wants to remain, stay and fight, and hasn't even got a pre-season game yet. I guess what I'm trying to say is that why sign 2 centre-backs when he can entrust COLWILL even more and reinvest that money into other areas of the team, like maybe another left wing back or right wing back. I just don't think that signing Kimpembe is necessarily the best idea when he isn't particularly levels and levels and levels on top of the talent we have in COLWILL. I can see why we're not going to spend 60 to 65 million to try and sign him, but it's just then what is the point then? For example, one interesting stat is Kimpembe's aerial duels contested and aerial duels won. Now, these are stats from the Champions League. I always think using Champions League stats is a good indicator behind how players do performing at the highest level in football. He was barely tested aerially, but when he was tested, he is not winning most of his aerial duels, and already he's a lot weaker aerially compared to someone like Levi COLWILL, who became even more seasoned and hardened playing in the Championship. And you see other deficiencies in his game as well too. I think his tackling is a lot better when he has that protection behind him by playing in a back three setup. You know, it gives him the license to push forwards, be proactive, to leave his defensive line, to engage with defenders in front of him. But he's shown a bit of struggles when it comes to showing different sides of the defensive game. And when it comes to just like all-round reading of the game, it is very good, but in terms of the ability to win all his duels, it can be quite inconsistent. So I think what I'm really trying to say is that, I'm sorry, when you have someone like Levi COLWILL who really is that good already at 19 years old, and physically it's probably up there already with Kimpembe, why not just use him when originally you saw the potential Kimpembe had and gave him those opportunities? I'm sure some of you guys are a bit sick and tired of me constantly talking about Levi COLWILL, but I did the same thing with Reece James and Mason Mount. So right now, we end things with the final big story. Now just leading on from the last story in Kimpembe with the stats shown. Don't you think it's so funny that Kounde, when it comes to aerial duels contested and won, is literally on a different hemisphere compared to what Kimpembe showed using like similar metrics? You know, I have to say this whole nonsense that, because Kimpembe is 5'11", means that he's poor aerially, I don't understand where it comes from. And it's just like, I wish like sometimes people watch these players first before just blindly accepting false narratives, because when you see this guy's stocky frame, plus his leap as well to an anticipation, and his ability to use his body in very smart ways, just like nudge opposition strikers or players attempting to compete aerially with him, you know, he uses his brain a lot. It reminds me of Ashley Cole, who, you know, the guy was phenomenal at defending far post and near post headers. And a lot of times he's not out jumping his man, he's just using his body in very smart ways to just put them off the ball. Kounde constantly deals with aerials and comes out on top. So for me, the reason why I'm saying this is that if I had to sign a defender, it would probably be Kounde. I'm sorry, I think the guy's unique and I think he's a great player. But anyway, let's break down the stories coming out from Spain today. Currently, Sevilla are desperately looking to find quick solutions now to sell Kounde. They want to reinvest back in their team, and ideally they prefer to have like a bidding war between us and Barcelona, but Barcelona and funds is one of these eternal puzzles of this window. It's not making sense to me, you guys. But anyway, ideally, Kounde would prefer to go to Barcelona. Xavi is a massive fan, and Xavi's actually told Kounde maybe delay things by a few weeks if possible to give us more time to find solutions, try and sign you. Reports from Spain have suggested that Barcelona have considered offering talented youngsters like Nico Gonzalez and Azal Zuli, who are players that could be offered as a double part exchange plus money to try and sign Kounde. And for me, considering they've got very, very good potential, Sevilla could easily cash in on talents like this in like, you know, a couple of seasons time. I say this because with Barcelona, they've proven that you just can't rule them out for anything. They're an institution, they're a famous brand. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Kounde had surgery recently, but that was successful. It was a very minor operation, and he is ready to take part in pre-season and will be ready for the start of the next season. Reports are saying that we could potentially have a deal wrapped up for the player in the next week. And that's because we have enlisted the help of Jorge Mendes, with Todd Boehly asking Mendes to act as an intermediary to help get this deal over the line. Now, could this be the start of a beautiful relationship in the long term between Boehly and Mendes? Hopefully, because I like a lot of the clients that Mendes has on his cards. So Kounde, it seems we are now back in to try and sign him, especially after losing out on Nathan Ake. Now, what is quite conflicting is the fact that it seems like Tuchel is just kind of okay with the signing, even though ideally he wouldn't be his main first option. I've always sensed his energy from Tuchel, even from last season. I do think that Kounde is a lot better than people realise, and I think he could actually provide something quite good to the team, especially in a long-term sense as well too. For me, if we sign one more defender, I think that's all we need. Let's not overkill things by signing two. That's going to like lock us down to long-term deals with centre-backs, and maybe in a season or two's time, we might be thinking, do we even need to have all these guys right now? So I'm hoping that maybe Kounde for me would be the business I'd get done, because I also think that Kounde is quite future-proof in the sense that whatever happens tactically with the system in the future, Kounde will always give you unique solutions to your team. That's only my opinions though. Please share your thoughts and ones below. And you guys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm the EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys there with some more videos. Cool.